there are a couple handouts. If you didn't get them on the way in, please pick them up on the way out. There's one that talks about tonight with the panelists on it. On the back, there is a survey. Asks you about future discussions, community discussions, and things we can talk about. So please make sure you take a moment to do that. Really quickly, there's a short thing. Even if you don't do it before you leave, take it with you and do it once you come home. Okay. And we have 2 microphones working tonight. We'll start here at the end. Our panelists, again, I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but their whole stories are right here.
Hi everyone, my name is Tina Kalou. I'm a Lawrence resident. I've worked at Carrier Clinic for the last 15 years. I'm pretty much dedicated my career at this point to working with adolescents with complex trauma and what you're hearing described as toxic stress.
Hi, my name is Corey Rutt. I'm the school counselor at Ben Franklin Elementary. I have experience working with children in the school setting in grades pre-K through 12.
Hi everyone, I'm Lynn Traina. I'm one of the nurses at Lawrence Intermediate School. Saw this movie about a year ago, and I contacted Jay and I said we've got to let people see this. And we've been learning about trauma now for the better part of a year. These guys have dealt with it most of their careers, but we've been just doing a lot of learning, a lot of webinars, a lot of book reading and educating our staff, and then we wanted to do sort of a community talk. So just really glad you guys came out tonight to hear about it. There's so much more that we have to tell you about how we can take it into the schools and what else we can do, but at least this is a good start. So I'm school nurse, LAS.
Hi everybody, my name is Jesse Bassett, and I'm coming from a nonprofit organization called Good Grief. We provide free peer support programs, education, and advocacy for grieving children and families after the death of a parent or sibling. And the educational work we do, we've actually just started this last year a resilience-based curriculum program that we're rolling out in school districts across the state. So we're pretty excited about that too.
Hi everyone, my name is Ann DeGennaro. I am the Student Assistance Counselor at Lawrence High School, but I'm also the District Student Assistance Counselor, and I work collectively with the middle school kids as well. I want to say thanks for showing up tonight. I think it's wonderful to see some faces in our audience. You made your first step in being better parents, even as good as you are now, in understanding some dynamics about what your kids may or may not be dealing with, what yourselves might be dealing with, and we're really glad that you're here tonight, so ask us questions.
Okay, does anybody have any questions, first of all?
Mr. Kessler, go ahead.
My question is whether or not you think that resilience is really the right word here. This book, Risk, has been very popular. People talk about that a lot. People talk about that a lot. Corporations, but that implies sort of grinding through things and toughness and stuff. This is a lot more of a public health, sort of an epidemiology kind of approach, which the word resilience, I'm not quite sure it fits.
I just want to, if I can go first with the medical, I'll give you the medical side of it, because I read Dr. Nadine Burke's book, The Deepest Well, and so she talks about the medical aspect and the 6 things that you need to deal with trauma. She says are adequate sleep, exercise, nutrition, meditation, healthy relationships, and mental health. Those are, and then we have to expand on those in school. We have social emotional learning, we have restorative practices, things like that. I mean, and resiliency training is part of that in the trauma-informed approach, and it's one spoke on a wheel of things. So it's one of the approaches that you would take. It's not singularly an approach in school, but grit, I mean, you could say is sort of part of resiliency training, I would say.
I'll add to that. I think grit comes after resiliency. I think once you are a resilient individual that's able to overcome the adversity that you're experiencing in your life, you establish grit. You know how then to be able to overcome certain obstacles that come towards you or in your way. And it's a continuum, really, when you talk about resiliency. You know, when you saw what you saw tonight, you know, I get firsthand experience of kids that have experienced. My first experience with ACEs is I'm starting to utilize this with my students. And unfortunately, I had a student just today who scored a 10 on the ACE. And this kid comes to school, and this kid is succeeding as best as they can, but making the connection even tonight with this, they're also very sick. They're out of school a lot. They're getting tonsillitis, they're getting headaches, and I'm now making the association with what, you know, we heard tonight. So grit, I believe, comes from the aftermath of resiliency and where that comes from within the individual. That's just Andy Janelle's opinion.
My understanding of grit is it's passion and perseverance. Resilience, so I think grit is just one aspect under the larger umbrella of resilience. And resilient competencies include more than just passion and perseverance, include things like autonomy and self-control and all of that kind of stuff that maybe falls a little bit outside of the realm of grit. So, you know, I mean, we could get into the semantics, a little bit of language, but at the end of the day, I think we're probably talking about similar things.
Any other questions?
I've got a big voice. I think everybody can hear me. I wanted to make a comment and then a question. So the comment was on grit, and I think the danger of grit is that has been co-opted a lot to put the onus on the individual child and not the systemic problems that need to be addressed, that are addressed through resilience. But my other question is, knowing the growing literature body and research body on the benefit of nature time for children's mental health and adults' mental health, are there any plans by the district or local organizations to use the wonderful natural space resources we have in Lawrence to facilitate any of those benefits?
Tough question. To be honest with you, that isn't something we've stepped into yet, but that is a really, really good point, that we should take advantage of, like, a lot of the natural spaces we have. I know that there's a lot of research about using the natural spaces. There's a lot of research about play. There's a lot of research about recess for our kids, which we're trying to put more into effect, to put more time into the day for our kids. I know at Ben Franklin now, I've been able to do a little bit of that, and I think it's benefiting our students. We struggle with, as a school body, the time to get out and do those things in our 6.5-hour day. And like you say, the natural resources that are so available. It's funny, I was having a discussion with one of my teachers today, and she wants a treehouse. Okay, which again, to me is kind of the coolest outdoor reading nook ever, and we're trying to figure out how to make that happen in a safe way for our kids. But again, out in nature doing those things, you know.
Also, I'm allowed to. As part of the Sustainable Jersey grants that often we apply for, and the fact that we are a certified school, that we're eligible for a lot more grants, I think each individual school is really looking at using our spaces differently. I know at the high school level, we just added a mindfulness garden, and it's a teaching space now. They have enough benches that our teachers in the better weather can go out there and use the space. They built a garden that's sustainable, and so little by little, I think each school is using those opportunities, especially within the Sustainable Jersey grants and the Sustainable Jersey process, because a big component of that is health and wellness. It's not just, the ecosystem sort of thing. So little by little, I think, we're always looking for new ideas, but we have been working with them.
And Mrs. Rutt just got a grant from LTEF for Peace Corners, and maybe she can talk about that in her school.
Yeah, so I just received a grant from Lawrence Township Education Foundation for calming corners in each classroom in Ben Franklin. They are indoor calming corners, but the purpose behind them is to give children the tools and skills that they need to learn to, number one, regulate their own emotions and return perhaps from a somewhat dysregulated or even highly dysregulated state to a ready-to-learn state. So some of the tools that will be included in the calming corners are things like squeezing balls, cards that guide children through 5-finger breathing, other breathing techniques, things of that. So really with the goal of, number one, teaching children that they do have the power to calm themselves and that these are skills that can be learned, and then giving them the time and space and permission to do that, and then also having teachers encourage them and helping them identify times when self-calming techniques are needed.
So, how do we make it safe for parents and students to report the things, domestic violence, sexual abuse, physical abuse, when often when they are reported, children's services get involved and another trauma happens to the family as the kids are separated from their families and taken apart. And often I find that parents don't want to report or kids don't want to squeal or say this because another set of people are going to come in and rip us apart and do things. So how do we take what is totally necessary to understand and to research and to be part of, but also make it a safe environment for people to be able to express this without fear that their kids are going to be taken away from them, their families are going to be split up.
Wow.
Sorry.
So I guess to answer that question, I would say we're talking about two different things a little bit. One, when we talk about adverse childhood events, we're talking about knowledge of what has happened already, or maybe is going on, and how we clear that up. But then the second thing is talking about safety, and they're very different things. So safety is obviously the primary concern when it comes to the kids that you guys are teaching or working with, or parenting, and whatever role is. That has to be primary. If they're not safe, how do we work forward with that? But the goal, so at Carrier, I can tell you I work intimately with DCP&P, which was formerly known as DIPES. And I can tell you the goal is not to go in and rip apart families. And I know that's a common misnomer, but really the goal is to keep everybody safe. And as they were talking about in the movie is education. What is missing from this scenario that we can provide to help keep this family together and support everybody? If there's something going on that truly requires, and I'll just say, like you said, rip the family apart, there's got to be a really bad situation going on for somebody to go in and remove a child. But often the case is that they can go in and provide education. But when we talk about the ACEs, we're really talking about looking at a history that's maybe happened to that child and how we prevent all the things that they were saying in the movie. Physical illness, behavior concerns, and things like that. Part of it is just being open to having the conversation, as they were saying in the movie too. Not being afraid to ask those questions. I've never heard of the Kendra. I love that. That was so cool. Okay, that was super cool. And I guess as a parent too, going to the pediatrician too, I see some of the questions they ask on my screening forms and things like that. They're not those questions. So it's really, I guess, as educators and community members that are concerned, not be afraid. I don't know what your goal would be to be, but I probably wouldn't expect that there would be somebody greeting students at Ben Franklin every morning asking if they had been hurt or they were safe or things like that. I certainly know Ms. Rutt in your role and Ms. Trina in your role, those are questions you guys are asking.
And can that is a tough one. All the time, our first things must be safety. Obviously, we have an obligation if we know a child is being hurt in the home, we have to make those reports. But again, it's more to give the family help. And it's not always looked at that way, and I get that. I do get that. But you know, Corey and I have been working together for a little while now, and constantly thinking about, you know, what kind of help can we give these families that need this. And I'm speaking to the people that are here tonight, but when you go home and you're in your neighborhoods and you're in your, talk about these things with your neighbors and your friends, because the more people that become aware of what we're talking about, one of the key points that they talk about stopping the intergenerational issues that occur. And the best way we can do that is by educating the parents. And so those people aren't here tonight, some of them, you know? And you're here, so educate them and tell them people are out there to help them. Because, again, we have to help the children, and to help them, we need to help the families.
So I also want to add that we're very fortunate tonight to have 2 Lawrence Township police officers that are here present, that are our juvenile officers for the township. So they're educating themselves, and they're working with us to help these families. There's times as the principals, we have to step aside and let them do their job, but they hear us because we have that relationship. So we're doing our mother bear, dad business and helping our families, and our police department is doing their job, but also working with us and hearing us. And so it's really important that they're here tonight, also hearing these things and learning about these things with us.
And I think that's a very good point, because as the school administration and the superintendent, they did invite us to us. So, yes, some of you guys, the people in the audience know me, Detective Burns, but Detective Ryan, he's one of our new officers, 10 years in the department. So he'll be taking over some of the lead. We have a great relationship with the schools. I get it. Some of the things we have to cross the line where, you know, but we have a great avenue of resources that we can work with through social services, through DCP. Mercer North knows us. We call myself or Ryan. We streamlined all the police department reporting. The administrators and the superintendent allowed us to come into the schools. I started my first in Elgin Park Monday morning. I'll be at one of the schools tomorrow. Ryan will be picking up every other month. So we'll be there for you guys. Chief Florio's direction to the police department is to do a 180 and get us back into the schools and be vocal out there and be present. You'll see us at the assemblies. You'll see us at community events. Our phones will ring off the hook if there's something going on in town. You guys need to call us. You can reach out to any of the school principals. They can pick up our phones. They all have our cell phone numbers. It's that quick, and we're all down here. The incident took place in schools, not to change subjects, but when those things take place, there's certain policies the district has implemented already. We'll work with the parents, we'll get through it, and we're there, that's what we're there for. And like this tonight, we were invited. We're here to help you guys, so that's what we're doing. I know the panel up there, helping when we deal with the regular basis. Miss D, I love going and talking to her about her helping. We've helped a lot of her students as well, and we've had some great success for you. So it's a good thing. Thank you.
And if I can add to that too, I really believe that in Lawrence, in our school system itself, along with our community, and I can speak through experience with this, when those unfortunate situations happen where DIPUS is required to be called, the relationship that's established with that particular student first, really, and when you think about ACEs, it talks about that one adult. Well, we're trying to establish more than just one adult in our building. It's not just the counselor that is talking to that student. The administration gets involved, and we have conversations with the students, and even with the parents at times. I've had many conversations with parents that have had, DC and P&P had to be called out to a home for a certain situation. So I believe what we're trying to do in Lawrence tonight, and I can, again, just speak for what I know we do, is to establish that relationship with not just our student, but with the parents. And if we could get the parents to understand we're not the enemy, that we're here to help and provide services and support for the parents, it really does make a difference in the life of the child, because if they didn't feel that connection, they wouldn't come back to see that person again. And they come back, and so do the parents. The parents will call us, you know, and you know, you'll get those phone calls, because that's what we're trying to establish in the district, is to show our community that we're not just here for your kids, we're here for you as well, but we need you to help us. And that's really the bottom line of all of this, is building it from the family up to when we get it. So it's a little different environment when we're dealing with our PCPD cases.
So my question is this something to do with ACE's questionnaire, something that we as a district are looking to start to use in the school in a certain area or in all areas, or is it, you know, I'm just kind of wondering what, you know, if there's like an idea, which I think it's all great. I teach high school, I didn't learn, I think it's different in high school. And I especially felt the part with, you know, with students with ADHD and, you know, any kind of learning disabilities and problems, that I thought this would be a great thing to have in the hands of a child study team as they're evaluating, through the process of an evaluation or referral program at school for students. So I'm just curious what the thinking on that is.
Well, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people that wouldn't be open to answering questions like that. It would have to be a family type thing. It's interesting you say that, because that's one of the pieces that struck me. Having moved to a new school in September, I met with a lot of families because they just want to meet the new guy and make sure that they're known. And you know, and some families would come in and tell me about their kids and tell me about this. And so I meet these kids in September, and they told me about their son who has ADHD or their daughter who has ADHD. And I'm thinking, okay, do they really have ADHD or don't they? And I have to tell you, I don't know that a lot of our families would be open right now to taking this survey, the ACEs survey. I think as the kids get older and they're more able to understand, I think it's really important. One of the things that they talk about too is teaching the kids the brain science behind it. So we know we have kids of trauma, kids who are under this toxic stress, whether the parents know that part of it is in the home or for whatever reason. And teaching the kids to understand how their brain is working and why they can't learn at this time. They talked about the cortisol. It's a huge the cortisol and how it's shooting through your brain. I just keep thinking of, again, specifically about the one student, the parent had talked to me about, and running across the street with traffic all day long. And I thought about living in this house that it seemed like he might be living in. And I thought, I'm not sure that's ADHD. I can see why he's, having trouble sitting in his seat all day long. So I think it's a process, is what I'm trying to say. It would be a hard thing to do.
I think I'm Peggy D. Tomaso, I'm a social worker at the middle school and the child studies. And I think that we definitely could use the ACEs scores for social histories, for some of our working families who maybe are not seeing the why. It is a tough tool. It's difficult, to have to answer those questions. But across, the beauty of our diverse community is that we have to recognize that these things happen in all families. And our history, of generations brings us, forward, and we say, well, that happened. I lived through it, my uncle lived through it, parents lived through it, but we're seeing, if we know about it, like I kept hearing the pediatrician say, if we know about it, we have to address it. We don't agree with smoking in the car anymore, right? We don't roll the windows up and smoke with our kids. So this is going to be a sensitive tool, but I think we can use it if we need to assist
interesting things I liked about the tool was she talked about the number and not being specific about which ones, what is the final number, and I think that's an important thought to have.
I think it's important to just remember at any age sort of the general education of the kids and understanding what is healthy home life like, and just giving them the notion of what it should feel like and what they should be seeing, how to treat each other at each age versus sitting down and taking pieces. I know that would be very difficult, but if you look at it, every person by the time they're a certain age has, fortunately, many of those things in their life, most of them. So I think, how can we infuse that into daily life, educating parents, newsletters, and things from teaching kids what to expect. Because they don't know their own experience. Everybody's house is like this. They don't know, maybe it's not like that. Somebody else's house. And the reality that they face. Yes.
This is a two-pronged question. The first, for those who have experiences with students and families with sensory traumas, what do you find is the best way to educate families, or to have, are there any preventive measures that you see as most successful? And for Lawrence, are there any preventive measures that we as a district actively take or thinking about taking? Is there any general education that the whole district is looking at rather than voluntary education?
So I'll kind of say what I was going to say, which I appreciate your question. When you say preventative measure, what I hear you asking is about how we're going to prevent this from manifesting into behavior issues and medical issues and things like that. Is that sort of what you're asking?
Yeah, and then they were talking about like talking to the family before this conversation, before we have to take the time to look at the consequences.
So here's what I would say about that, and this is kind of in line with the previous question, is I appreciate that people are just asking the why. Because really what we're talking about is when this becomes behavioral issues, and it starts ending up in diagnoses of ADHD and conduct disorders and other things that we're seeing in some of the teenagers. Asking why instead of just looking at the behavior is really the preventative measure. Looking at it and saying, there's something going on. What is happening with this child? And not so much focusing on the redirection and the opposition. That's really, to me, the key in all of this. And that's what's starting with this community conversation. I know we're probably far away from handing out ACEs questionnaires to all of our families. Again, there's a stigma associated still, no matter how far we've come, and no matter how much national reform has addressed mental health as an issue that has to be looked at the same way high blood pressure has to be looked at, there's a fear of coming forward and answering some of those questions. And as a community, if we can start to look at our kids and say, what's going on with that child, and having those types of conversations, I think that's the key preventative measure. I understand it. A teacher probably has 20 kids in their classroom, and if one person is having behavioral issues and things like that, it's easier to maybe have that student go to another room. It's easier maybe to have that student refer down to Mrs. Rutt. But if the teacher stops and looks a little bit deeper, then maybe it doesn't stigmatize the student and take them away constantly and put them in that position.
I think one of the key takeaways from the film is that behavior, especially the younger the child, but really in everyone, behavior is communication. And if we can, as a society, stop categorizing behavior into black and white columns, good or bad, and start looking at behavior as communication and trying to understand the why underneath the behavior, and then treating not just the symptom, which is the behavior, but the underlying cause of it. If we can as a school district, as a community, partner together to do that for our children, that would be a really big win, and I think that's what we're here hoping to be part of.
Some of the things, Bess, as I had read about, I'm going to talk about preventive stuff that you had talked about, and some of the things are societal reinforcements for the buffering adults. So if you provide the buffering adults with the support they need, whether it's poverty or incarceration or whatever, you need to support the family so that the child doesn't become, doesn't have some of the toxic stress, or you can reduce the stress on the buffering adult. Because as Dr. Bruce Perry says, relationships are probably the most important part of healing and thriving after trauma, and human love is the most effective form of therapy. So if you have human love and you have from a buffering adult that is under less stress, then you have some preventive medicine. That's how you look at it.
So one of the things you asked, that was about what we're doing as a district. So there's a lot of things. So there was, some people are here volunteering tonight, but all of our guidance counselors, CST, during PD days have seen this video. So there's education going on, and it's starting, and I'm pretty sure you probably showed it in your faculty, and some of the other building faculties have seen this video, and they're having the conversations. So we're starting to ask why. Relationships has always been in the forefront. And so we have a mental health committee that Melanie, who is our supervisor of guidance for the district, that she leads. Last year we did the first ever district wellness day. Talked about the mindfulness grants that we've been so lucky to get from the Lawrence Township Education Foundation. We have one at the middle school that we're doing mindfulness. There's so many things. We have SAGE, I spoke about this at our last meeting, that we have SAGE counselors at the middle school. They are mental health counselors that we have for the middle school and the high school. They have full caseloads where we are working with families. It is not just working with the student, it's having that communication with parents, it's helping parents parent. Some of them need our help. You just heard Peggy talk about she's having parents as a child study team member. She's working with the whole family. So it's a process. We go into I've been to homes with Officer Dunn and Officer Burns. That's what we do. We're waking up kids, we're helping parents learn how to wake up kids, we're phone calling them before school. So there's a lot of love. So Jay and I were laughing about, he's putting food out, and I go, oh, we do food all the time here, because we gotta feed them. We have to, they're hungry. At Blackwood, they're going home with bags of food for the weekends. There's so much that we do that we don't necessarily advertise, because we also need to respect these families and their kids. But this staff is amazing. And we have really good people in this district that love and care.
One thing I want to say, just to highlight something that struck me the first time I saw this, changing the conversation for our teachers. Instead of, what's wrong with you, what happened to you? Okay, and they said that, and we've used those words so many times. And you don't say it to a kid like that, what happened to you? But that's the thought process that you want to have, and then try to dig deeper with that child to try to figure out, where we go next and what we do. And again, I think the staff is starting to get it. It's not black and white anymore. There's a lot of shades of gray in how we can help our kids. So.
I just wanted to bring up one more thing from a preventative point that I forgot to mention earlier, is social emotional education. It's so important that people be able to identify their feelings. Even as adults in our society, many of us are lacking just emotional vocabulary. And if we don't have a basic understanding of our own emotions and the fact that everybody has them and that they change throughout every single day, and they're not good emotions and bad emotions, those are just key concepts that I hope by the time kids leave Ben Franklin, at least, that they've started to learn, to be able to expand their knowledge of emotions, and more than that, to understand that they do have some control over their behavior. Just because they feel mad, they don't have to kick something, they have a choice, they make a choice there. And hopefully if they can come away with an understanding of that, we can start to reduce drug and alcohol abuse and things like that people turn to for coping mechanisms, I think.
Any other questions? Can I just say thank you for coming out tonight? Appreciate it because
Thank you so much for this work. Thank you for sharing that. One thing I have to say on top of that is it's not always your social, emotional upset because maybe you don't have the money to buy food or someone may have be neglected. You know, sometimes it's the other side. We have serious anxiety issues in this district. And a lot of kids that come to school and they don't want to come to school because they're anxious and they're nervous and if they can't get an A, then that's a problem. I have to get an A because I need to get an A. And I have a lot of parents that come in and they're really upset because you know they have to get an A. Well, guess who needs to be the first person telling them they don't have to get an A? Because when it comes down to it, if they're trying, if they're doing what they need to do, if they're, involved in sports and activities and positive things, maybe, some kids get the A easy. I wasn't a kid that got the A easy. We don't all get A's easy. But at the same time, the anxiety levels, every kid needs that one person that's going to support them no matter what. This is another thing I hear. Oh, well, in our neighborhood, all of our friends are in the top 10 of the class. Right? Guess what grade I start getting that question? 9th, after first marking period. And that regarded. And more homework. That is true. We have students. This is not liking me today.
I think it's that way, just be loud.
So, which I'm not good at. But really, when it comes down to it, can you imagine the stress? I'm a freshman in high school, going into my first marking period, wondering if I have a higher GPA than the kid next to me. That causes a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. And, everyone needs support because these kids go into class and they have someone next to them saying to them, what did you get? What did you do with this? What did you do with that? It's nice to be able to come home and relax, right? Everyone doesn't like seeing their boss at home, right? Really when it comes down to it, you want to be able to, everyone needs someone to go to. They need someone to know that they're trying their hardest, that they're doing what they need to do, and have that support system. Because really, a lot of what we talked about, it's very quick to say someone's bad and they're ADHD, and let's hurry up and give them a diagnosis, and now they're fixed, right? We know what it is, we know what it looks like. But really, if it's environmental, you can medicate all you want, but you're not going to be able to really address the problem. Does that make sense? Because really, you're just adding to it. So really, meeting with the counselors, a lot of the school counselors, I oversee all the counselors for the district, I'm the supervisor of guidance, they love talking about this stuff. You don't have to be anxious to ask questions. We get it all the time. And we work really well with DIPUS. They'll be the first ones to say, sorry, we're mandated reporters, we have to call. However, let's get things worked out together. Let's call mobile response together so that when we call DIPUS, we're on the same team. We know we have to get them involved. However, we're working together to say, okay, we're getting these supports in place. I've worked for DIPUS, but in Chester, PA for a long time. It's imminent risk. You have to be at imminent risk in
order for a family to continue to run. So really, to work with DIPUS isn't as scary as what some people think it is. And I was really glad you said that because they are. Their first thing is to provide support systems. We had a student this year not going to school. And, DIPUS got involved and it was really successful. The family was really happy because they were having a hard time. And really we were able to work together and she's been coming to school at this point. So, that's something you can share with the community that, it's not something that's, we're trying to slap your hand like you were bad, kind of thing. It's, how do we work together even though we have to be a mandated reporter and make it work for our kids. And, the counselors are always available. You can always call them and just say, this is what's going on. I'm not really sure where to go with it. It's always confidential, and of course, unless if someone can be hurt or we have to, make a report. But either way, even if we make that report, it's still confidential within the school. And you can always be a support system. We can always call teachers together. You can meet with the counselors. I have met with a lot of families and we continue to do that. So if you need anything, definitely reach out to them no matter what the situation. I had a dad call me the other day and he's like, I think my kid is being a knucklehead and I'm not really sure if he's being a knucklehead and not trying or if he's really having a hard time and I need to figure that out. Which is fine because it's hard. If we get all the teachers in, we can say, oh, is he being a knucklehead in class too? Kind of thing and work that out and figure out what it is that we need to do in each of those classes that can hopefully, relay home and, make everybody on a happier page. But, Jeff, I appreciate everyone coming in. You can share all this information, with everyone in your communities and try to support the kids the best we can. I really appreciate it.
Any more questions?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please, do.
Graham, you rock. You are the epitome of ACEs. You're reducing his toxic stress. And he's going to be successful. He's got you in his life. So thanks. Thank you.
Any other questions? Statements? Okay. First of all, I want to thank our panel coming out. I want to thank our panel here for coming out tonight. Again, everybody's here for their own special reasons, but we started the conversation. Keep the conversation going. On the sheet, take the information out there. There's a link to fill out a form, a really quick form, 3 or 4 questions. Thank you, Corey, made that up, about future things. Like I said, these people here and you are what's going to change this conversation from this township and for the kids that we work with. We can't do it without you, okay? But if you then go home and spread the word, next time you'll have twice as many people. Now I know this is what we have. We have advertised a special gift certificate.
Yes, so we promised one lucky attendee would win a Visa gift card. It's a Visa gift card for $50. Unfortunately, nobody's sitting in that chair, but, so I get it. No, I'm kidding. So it's actually the 5th row in the middle here, and I think in the striped shirt, you're the closest. Yes, it's 3 chairs over from you. You can just come up and grab it.
But thank you for coming out tonight. Take cookies. Otherwise, the staff will be able to make them. Yes, please, questions.